What's going on YouTube? Northeast Ohio Sports Cards here for a comic book video. I know, but just listen, sports card people and comic book people. Hello. Today we're going to talk about some of the crazy gains in the comic book market lately. Made the video a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago. I don't remember exactly when it was, about how I thought sports card people could turn their attention to the comic book market. And their prices have just really been going on some stuff kind of to the next level the last couple weeks. And I don't know if that's what's happening or not, or just comic book investors are just doubling down. But I feel like there's another new wave of money coming in to that market from what I've been seeing. Now, I do not follow the comic book market on a day-to-day basis like I do with cards, but I keep a relatively decent eye on it, but I'm not in the weeds. So once again, as I usually like to preface on the channel, do your homework on this stuff before you just dive in blindly. But some of these returns over just a couple months on comic books pales in comparison to some of the sports card stuff. And personally, I think it's just way less risky. Yes. Is there risk? Sure. Because it's a collectible asset. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? But in general, I don't think you're going to see the wild swings, especially downwards, like you do with modern NBA, for example. To me, this is more like investing in the all-time greats. Now, we're going to talk about some stuff today, some individual issues, or ones that I mentioned during that last video, but I kind of wanted to show you guys exactly what's going on. So, YouTube stuff down below, like, comment, sub, the whole 9 yards. Smash the like button on this one. I really want the sports cards people to see this one. So smash the like button and let's get into it. Oh, by the way, links to market movers down below. That's the software I'm going to be using today. Yes, I figured out a way to, I didn't necessarily figure it out, but I had the epiphany of, wait a second, can I chart comic book prices in market movers? And the answer is yes. So I went digging this week for a little bit for a market movers equivalent for comic books. And a couple people recommended some stuff. I checked them out. I was not enamored with them. They seemed fine, but they weren't on the level of what I was used to working in market movers. So what I have done is I'm using the chart sealed wax feature. And to be frank with you guys, essentially what I've done here is kind of gimmick the system. And I don't see why you couldn't use this to chart anything as long as you put the keywords in correctly. And you got to finesse it a little bit. It is not going to be perfect. You got to go in and kind of clean up some listings and stuff. And I could give you guys a quick show of that, but it was pretty easy overall. It probably took me less than 2 minutes to run each one of these charts and clean them up. So I did chart sealed wax, and for set, you could free type in whatever you want. So I put in New Mutants 98 up here at the top, right here. And then for other terms to include, I put CGC 9.8. And then I came over here to help manually or automatically clean it up a little bit. Terms to exclude, I put reprint, facsimile, and I also included newsstand. So I mentioned this briefly before. There's direct copy editions and newsstand editions. Newsstand editions are extremely rare. They're not tracked separately on the CGC census, so we really don't know how many is out there, but they sell for a drastic premium. For the purposes of this, since they don't come up very often, I did not want to include newsstands in the charting. I just wanted to use the baseline direct edition and just kind of go from there. So I have charted a few key comic books, and I'm going with more kind of like what I talked about in the last video, late 80s into like 90-ish vibes here. And mostly because that's what I collected as a kid. You know, this is when I was huge in the comic books. When I was a kid, was this era, and it's the era that I'm getting drawn back to. And as I talked about in the video with if sports card people cross over, I could tell you right now, most of the demographics are 35 to 45. And I could see the same things filtering down. And coincidentally enough, a lot of these books are the ones that are moving and moving quickly. So, New Mutants 98 up first. This is the one that I purchased, that I featured on that video. This is the first appearance of Deadpool. In the CGC 9.8, there are 3,360 of these. And one of the things that the comic book crowd got on me about is that a lot of comic book people don't grade them. So there's probably way more out there than 3,300, and that the print runs were huge, this, that, and the other thing. I get that, guys. And I understand that, you know, they could send those in and get them graded or whatever, and they would get added to the count. But the way I understand it, comic book grading takes about a month or two at least. And if the prices spike on these so high, to be able to flip them, you need the graded comic book in hand already. I'm not worrying about things that aren't out there and graded and not on the census. If the census wants to get flooded with them, I feel like that would have happened already. I understand a lot of people don't like to grade their stuff, but these prices are getting so astronomical that I feel like most people that would want them graded have them graded. If they were ever going to grade it, it would have been graded by now. I'm sure some will filter on there, but there's also just the power of having the graded comic book in hand. And if the market spikes on it, you want to already have the book in hand to sell. You don't want to be like, oh man, I should send this out to CGC. Because trust me, from the sports card world, that's how you miss your window. You send something out for grading, and by the time you get it back, something happens to shift that price. Now, I don't think the comic book market's quite as volatile as that in regards to the downward trends, but I could be wrong. So, New Mutants 98, CGC 9.8. And the only thing about chart sealed wax like this, you don't have a lot of refinement. So I can't tell it go back X number of days. It automatically defaults to, I think, 120 days. I don't remember exactly. But most of this stuff is going to date back to late November. So essentially about 3 months. So maybe it's 90 days. Regardless, so I don't have controls like that. I can't pull up and do like grade comparisons like I would in sports cards with a PSA 10 versus a PSA 9 on the same graph to see if they go up congruently. You know, those types of things I don't have, but to get a quick general idea of trend line and percentage change, it's not too bad at doing it on the fly. And like I said before, I wouldn't see why you couldn't massage this to track anything that you wanted to a degree. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it's better than most of the comic book software I saw out there. If I'm missing something, guys, comic book people, please tell me. If there is a comic book app or website, I don't care if it's subscription and I have to pay for it or not, that gives me data like this in nice, clean charts, graphs, and etc., please let me know. I tried GPA Analyst and I did not like it. But all right. New Mutants 98, first appearance of Deadpool. Since the end of November, and this is eBay sales only, in a CGC 9.8, 50 have sold, and it has gone up in that period of time 122%. Back in late November, this was around a $900 to $1,000 comic book, and it is now up, sitting right at $2,000. So in a 3-month time period, this went up 122%. That's pretty damn good. I mean, that would rival most of your sports card returns. And without a lot of the downside risk. Like, the thing that is appealing to me about this market is that you're, in my opinion, you are less likely to get burned. And having huge drop-offs. You know, could this book come back a little bit? Sure. but I don't see it dropping 50% in 3 weeks like a Colin Sexton PSA 10 or something like that. So that's why I've been starting to move. I'm not like, don't get me wrong, I'm not like bailing on sports cards or anything crazy like that. Like, just let's relax. But I am looking to diversify. And I think that that's smart, personally. I just like the idea of, okay, cool. I have my modern NBA. I'm going to start working in some older stuff, or just, modern sports cards. I want to start working in some older stuff. And then in addition to that, I want, this little comic book pile over here of CGC 9.8s or high grades, depending on how far back you're going. Stuff gets expensive fast, off to the side here. And I think other people are starting to see this as just a very safe place to move your money into. A Deadpool first appearance isn't a Jordan, LeBron, Kobe level card for an equivalent. It's probably, like a Shaq, maybe. Think of it like something like that. It's not like super GOAT status. It's semi-attainable. So, it is what it is. But yeah, since late November, up 122%. Let's look at a couple more. I have quite a few examples here. Ultimate Fallout 4. Now, New Mutants 98 came out in 92, I think, 91, 90, early 90s, 91, I think. Comic book people are yelling at me right now. I can hear it. Ultimate Fallout 4. First appearance of Miles Morales. Extremely crazy price swings on this one as well. I'm not going to get into the crazy variant stuff with this. Once again, please do your research. I'm just trying to show you guys. I understand comics aren't for everybody, but everybody likes to collect cash. So worst case scenario, think of it from that perspective and look at it this way. It would also be easier for you to flip or move because you don't have a personal attachment to it like you might your sports cards. I know that happens to me. In this case, I'm more worried about having a personal attachment to the comic books than I am most of the sports cards that I own. So first appearance of Miles Morales. If you're not familiar with Miles Morales, if you watched Into the Spider-Verse, Miles Morales. Anyway, this book since late November, we have 63 sales. It starts the chart off once again right at around that $1,000 price point. It is currently over 2,000, up 94%. And look at what this has done the last 2 weeks, the second half of February. This was floating around 1,800 and is now up to 2,100. And this thing just keeps jumping every time one sells. And once again, this one, there are 2,400 of on the CGC census. And this is, like I talked about in that video a week or two ago, this is the appealing part to me. There is not a lot of these out there. If you want a Miles Morales first appearance, CGC 9.8, 2,400 of them. Yes, I understand there's more out there in excellent condition, but I care about what is currently slabbed in a CGC 9.8. I don't care about what if or what's out there. This comic book's selling for $2,000. If someone has one in pristine condition, my sense would be is that they're going to send that in the CGC. And if this thing goes to $3,000, I would rather have the one that's already slabbed in hand that I can sell and not the one that I have to send off and get back. So 94% return over the last 90 days on this. And this is a more modern book, by the way. Ultimate Fallout 4, not that old. I forget the year that it came out, but this is definitely the most modern thing we're going to talk about. This is the one exception to the rule because this specific book has been going kind of crazy. Amazing Spider-Man 361, first appearance of Carnage. We talked about this one in that video that I made. Once again, about 66 of sold, dating back to late November. Started the period off at $600. Okay. It is now currently at 1,100, a 97% change. And the one thing that you notice about comics compared to cards, look at how not smooth, but more reasonable these graphs are. They go up at a very steady pace. For the most part, look at New Mutants 98. Look, like I'm flipping between the two. You can hardly tell a difference between the two. It is nice, slow, steady growth. As a couple sell, and then it kind of moves up to the next price tier, rinse and repeat. Now, Ultimate Fallout 4 was on that, and now all of a sudden it's taken a little bit of a steeper incline. But in the NBA world, or in the card world, this is kind of what you see in the off season. I made the football video about buying now and holding until August. This is like what you see between now and August, just slow, steady gains. And in this case, they're actually pretty fast. This thing's gone up 100% in 3 months. But you don't see those huge spikes like you do, like to use Colin Sexton as an example again. He had the Nets game where he went off and his prices tripled overnight, stayed there for like a week, and then immediately fell back down again, or kind of re-leveled themselves. And now they're all the way back down to where they started at the beginning of the season. But you're not seeing that here. You're just seeing nice, slow, steady inclines. And once again, the bottom could fall out of all this stuff. Who knows? But I just like the idea of these as very safe plays. Here's another one. X-Men, Uncanny X-Men 266, first appearance of Gambit. There are, Amazing Spider-Man 361. There's just over 4,000 of those. And X-Men 266, first appearance of Gambit. There's just under 2,800 of. The census numbers on these things are just so low. I know from a comic book side of things, those sound high. But like I made the point before, there's 15,000 Luka PSA 10 prisms. There's 17,000 Zion PSA 10 prisms. And that's just prism. That's not talking about select, optic, silvers, colors, variations, die cuts, this, that, and the other thing. How many Zion PSA 10 rookies are out there of various shapes and sizes? Just on the main brands, Mosaic, Optic, Select, Prism, including variations. There's got to be 50,000 at least? If you're just including everything, I don't know. I could look it up and do the math. The pop counts are in market movers. I could do that. So if you want a Zion PSA 10, basically the gold standard grade, you have a billion options to choose from. If you want the first appearance of Gambit in the highest grade possible, well, not the highest grade possible, but the gold standard grade, a CGC 9.8, there's 2,700 of them. That's it. That's the end of the story. If people come into this market beyond what's currently there, and I think we're starting to see that, I don't see how these current prices sustain. And when I say that, I mean like they could go to an entirely new level. Maybe I'm completely wrong on this. Once again, I am an outsider viewing this market from the outside. So that either makes me sound crazy or crazy like a fox. But once again, 32 have sold since the beginning of December. Back then, it was around $600. I was looking at this hardcore back then, never pulled the trigger, and this thing has gone wild the last few weeks. This is up to almost $1,000 now. Once again, 72% in about 90 days. Secret Wars, number 8. First black suit appearance, which would eventually turn into Venom. There are about 3,800 of these on the CGC census in a 9.8. Once again, going back to early December, these were about $400. These have recently taken off. They're upwards of $630. This one, I think, could be the next one to really go wild. It's already starting to go that way. But people love anything with Spider-Man, anything with the black suit, anything with the symbiotes. There's potential rumors of maybe Secret Wars being one of the phases of the upcoming MCU. There's just a lot of good things going with this book. It's a classic cover. Let me pull one up here for you guys to look at. So that's the cover. You may have seen it before, even if you just tangentially follow the comic book world. But I think this one, it's already started going, but I think it's about to go up to the next level. Let's get into some bigger ones. We mentioned Amazing Spider-Man 300. Not many of these have sold. This is the first appearance of Venom. There is only about 1,000 of these on the CGC census. Once again, another classic cover. Pull one of these up real quick for you guys to look at. Just an absolutely classic Spider-Man cover. This thing's been redone about 1 billion times. This has everything going for it. Classic cover, first appearance of Venom, McFarlane art, the whole 9 yards. This back in late November, we're going for about $4,000. They are now upwards of $5,000, and that one sold a few weeks ago. Good luck finding one for $5,000. That's all I'm going to tell you. I don't know when the next one of these will sell, but I will guarantee it'll probably be closer to 6. And there may be private sales already that went for 6. Once again, I'm strictly basing this off of eBay data. So that's up 20%, which seems low compared to some of the other stuff that we looked at. But a 20% gain on a $4,000 comic book is almost $1,000. So that's a pretty nice return in just a few months. And like I said, I bet you the next one to sell goes for a lot more than 5,000. These do not come up very often right now. And that's the appeal. This first appearance of Venom, one of the most iconic characters that there is right now. McFarlane cover, whole 9 yards. 1,000 of them exist in the CGC 9.8. And when I say exist, I get it, comic book guys. There are probably others out there bagged and boarded that have been kept in pristine condition in collectors' boxes. But until it's slabbed, it doesn't matter. Yes, the market could get flooded with these things, but I feel like that would have already happened if it was going to happen. Once again, if you're sitting on one of these and it's selling for $4,000 or $5,000, once again, outside perspective, maybe I'm just not reading the room correctly on this stuff, but I don't think there's going to be thousands of these things coming on the market, or even hundreds of these things coming on the market. Let's get into some big boys. Giant size X-Men #1, and I went CGC 8.5 on this one. Because in a CGC 9.8, look at the census on this, only 189 of them exist. This comic book is from 1975. For those unaware, let me pull one up real quick. Once again, one of the most iconic X-Men books in existence. It is the first appearance of a ton of different people. Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler, and Warpath for sure. And it is the second full appearance of Wolverine, arguably. It gets weird. Don't get into Wolverine appearance stuff on comic book pages. Things get crazy fast. Just trust me. Don't get into cameo appearances versus first appearances versus second appearances. Just let it ride. But on the CGC world, this is viewed as Wolverine's second full appearance. Absolutely iconic cover. And this is kind of where the X-Men went from their original team to the new team, basically. And the influx of new blood came. This book back in early December was $3,200, and this is in an 8.5. It is now currently $6,500 for 100% return in the last 90 days. And if you get into the higher grades, it gets crazy fast. You're getting into like house prices. I make the joke sometime about like a nice Honda Accord. Now you're talking about nice Mercedes, Lexuses, Benz, Audis. These older 70s, 60s, 70s books in not even a 9.8 grade get insane fast. So that's why I went with an 8.5. It's kind of a middling, an above middle grade. It's definitely above an entry level grade for sure, because you're talking about $6,000. This particular one right here, this and the next one that we're going to talk about are my two holy grails when it comes to comic book purchases. I don't own these yet. I would like to at some point in time, but they may already be beyond me. Talk about card holy grail purchases. My card one is some type of LeBron Topps Chrome rookie. On the comic book side, it's this. When you're talking about this, you're probably like the equivalent to this is like a Kobe paper PSA 10 rookie, LeBron paper PSA 10 rookie. You know, the LeBron Jordan stuff, you're going like X-Men #1, Amazing Fantasy, you know, that sort of stuff is like the true crazy stuff, Fantastic Four stuff, like the really old stuff, but that stuff gets so expensive. You don't even understand. So Giant Size X-Men #1. And the last one, just for an example of how crazy the comic book market is, Hulk 181, first appearance of Wolverine. Pull one of these up real quick just to show you guys the cover. Once again, this pretty iconic comic book right here. First full appearance of Wolverine. These back in early December. And once again, this is a CGC 8.0 I chose for this one. Going for about 5,000, 4,700. As of today, they are up to 6,500 for a 40% increase, which on this is $1,800. And once again, the CGC census on these are extremely low. Even in an 8, only 918 exist. And only a couple thousand, probably about 3,000 total exist in a higher grade. You can see in a 9.8, there's only 126 of these. And once again, a 9.8 in one of these, you're like talking Jordan PSA levels for this. Not quite PSA 10 levels, but you're probably talking LeBron Topps Chrome PSA 10, maybe even some refractor level pricing for something like this in a 9.8. And good luck finding one as well. If one of those comes up, that's like a golden auctions thing. You're not just logging on the eBay to buy that, most likely. So, but yeah, just once again, I just kind of wanted to give some examples of exactly how crazy the comic book market is and how much money's floating around out there. And I still personally think it's untapped. I really do. I mean, it has gone wild since COVID started the last year. But just when you look at the census counts and you compare it to sports card counts, if just a fraction of the market swings into there, I just don't think the inventory is there to maintain the current pricing levels when you're talking about population counts this low. And once again, that is the appealing part to me. I just think this is a much more stable market. So from a collectible standpoint, whether you're talking cards, sports cards, or Marvel cards, or G.I. Joe, or whatever, or comic books, I feel like this is a nice, safe place to park a portion of your portfolio, in addition to the sports card stuff and the non-sports cards, and whatever else it is that you're into, starting lineups, whatever, you know, pick your poison. There's a billion things out there right now, but I just really like the idea of diversifying lately to kind of spread my wings into these other markets, educate myself, and make some plays. And that's one of the biggest keys. Please educate yourself. Like I said before, I've been loosely following this market for about a year. Bought some stuff, nothing crazy. And I didn't follow it day to day, but I kept an eye on it. You know, I watched a lot of YouTube stuff all throughout the last year. You know, read some stuff, hung out in some Facebook groups, never posted anything, just kind of lurked. And picked up some trends and some thoughts and some, you know, the lingo and all that jazz. And I'm not saying you need to take a year to do it. You could do it quicker than that. It was just kind of like a pandemic project. But just make sure you educate yourself, do your homework, and at least look into it. That's all I got for you guys today. YouTube stuff down below. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.